The way in which the media has transformed fundamentally is, I think, one of the most significant political developments explaining so many of these things. Because if you go back and look at how journalists conceived of themselves 5 or 6 decades ago, and there's a danger to idealize or romanticize it, but it really is true that essentially if you were going to enter the field of journalism, it meant that you were going to be basically poor. You were going to be working class. The iconic reporter is somebody who is sort of slovenly dressed, sitting in an office late at night filled with his ink-stained hands. Somebody who really was in disposition. Dispositionally, his personality was an outsider, somebody who wanted to subvert those in power and elites. They were not at all part of the elite class. And that's what has radically changed so much. I mean, so now if you look at, say, MSNBC and you see a host on MSNBC, what you're actually seeing is a very high-ranking employee of what was General Electric and now is Comcast, who makes many millions of dollars a year and has a makeup artist sitting in front of their face for an hour applying all sorts of makeup and another person working on their hair. If you watch CNN, what you're seeing really is an employee of Time Warner who is extremely well paid. So, one of the fascinating aspects of this to me is that what it's really done is it has converted what a journalist had traditionally been, which is somebody who was deliberately situated on the outside of power as a watchdog over them, driven by the motto, afflict the powerful, comfort the powerless, into somebody who is now very much on every level, socioeconomically, emotionally, psychologically, someone who identifies with those in power. People in power are their colleagues, their neighbors, their friends. They rely on them in all sorts of ways, and it's converted them from watchdog over power into spokesperson and servant to people in power. And to me, one of the most illustrative examples is the reaction of the media class to the Occupy movement. Because if you look at how they reacted, at first what they said was, at first they ignored it until they couldn't do it anymore, or until someone at Goldman Sachs called them and said, "Get down there and tell us what's going on."
Check it out for us.
Yeah, and they got their marching orders from their assignment editor at Goldman Sachs. But when they finally did start talking about it, the first thing they were saying was, we just don't understand what these people are angry about. I mean, things are going really well. Why would American citizens possibly be angry? And of course, if you are a high-ranking employee of major corporations making several $1 million a year, things like mass joblessness and homelessness and foreclosures is not something that's in your personal range of experience. And then the issue became, we don't understand what their message is. What do these people want?
And they're a bit scruffy.
Yeah, they're kind of crusty and dirty. And the whole idea of what do these people want was even too stupid for our political discourse, because you could, for example, begin with the name Occupy Wall Street. That sort of gave a hint about what the message was. And then there were all these people with signs sort of angry about the fact that the very same people who had wrecked the entire world economy and destroyed economic security for huge numbers of people not only didn't pay any price for having done that, but profited greatly. That was sort of an obvious message as well. But for people in these situations, that's not within the realm of experience. That befuddlement that they had was genuine. They weren't pretending. And that's why I thought that, for example, when Aaron Burnett, who has this new CNN show, went on and spouted just the most patronizing, sneering, scornful, hatred on the protesters, I went and I looked at Aaron Burnett's life just to sort of see where she was coming from, and what I found was that she was raised in one of the most affluent suburbs in America, went to the second most expensive private school in the country, went to work for Goldman Sachs very nobly after graduating college, and is now engaged to the second or third highest ranking executive at Citigroup. And so is it really a surprise that Aaron Burnett looks at people protesting Wall Street with such scorn? She would tell you that she's the beacon of objectivity. All of you people here are biased. You're subjective. You have your own partisan blinders but not her. She's objective. She's a journalist. And yet her experience has made her sort of the living, breathing, oozing embodiment of this extreme socioeconomic bias. And that's what led her to do this, is she's an insider, and that's what journalism has become. And then the other example that was sort of a leading figure who scorned the protest movement was Bill Keller, the longtime executive editor of the New York Times, and he had decided that this protest movement was just boring. It was like very dreary, like having you people go out and complain.
60s.
Yeah, and it's just like he has his entertainment and things that he finds fulfilling, and this is just not it. You're boring him. And I actually learned yesterday for the first time, and this was so illuminating. There was a New Yorker profile about his successor at the New York Times, Jill Abramson. And in there it talked about what happened when the New York Times made the announcement that Jill Abramson would replace Bill Keller. And it said on the day that it happened, Bill Keller was standing there in this charcoal gray suit and his charcoal gray hair. And he was very upright, and he looked like the CEO and chairman of Chevron, which coincidentally enough was the position that his father had served in for a long time. So why is the son of the CEO of Chevron and the fiance of the second highest ranking executive at Citigroup scornful of Wall Street protesters? It's because this is who our media class is. They are integrated fully into the political class and are dependent upon and eager to serve those in power rather than serve as watchdogs over them. And that's why they lead the way in demanding that there be no investigations, demanding there be no accountability, because these are their friends, these are their Safeway buddies, these are the people they admire.